Shabbos Daf Kufay. 2 emails today from Los Angeles. First one comes from Harry Shalom, who says to Harav Hagoyin Admor, R Eli Stefansky Shlita, explains why he says that a Rebbe who teaches you Torah is more important than a father in some ways, doesn't care about the title and the smicha, but you are my Rebbe. Thanks to you, I've learned more Torah in the last 3 months than I've learned in my entire life. From a faithful Eli Stefansky Chassid, Harry Shalom, Los Angeles. Second one from Ari Ben Shushan from Los Angeles. Chazak Baruch, such an incredible responsibility, etc., etc., day in, day out. You must be living the daf. Ashrecha. He says a beautiful dvar Torah, a nevuv buvan, nevuv bahar saru. And then he says, thank you, I'm an avid listener and a huge fan. May Hashem give you koyach and continue to teach. Ruchni's Gashmias, many years to come. Ari Ben Shushan, Los Angeles. Back to our sugya. If a person writes a single letter with an apostrophe, let's say an R with an apostrophe, Reb, we know what that means. According to Reb Yehoshua ben Beseira, you are chayev, that's writing a word. According to Chachamim, you are potter. As Tais points out, according to Chachamim, even 3 letters in abbreviation, you'd be potter. Where do you see the concept of abbreviation in the Torah? Nutrikoin, the pasuk, Ki av hamoin goyim nesaticha. Hamoin is extra, so the Gemara darshans av hamoin. Aleph, I made you a father to all the nations. Ba'umais, I made you the chosen nation. Chaviv, the hey is interchangeable with the ches. You're beloved from all the nations. Melech, you're the king of all the nations. Vasik, distinguished. Neman, you're reliable from all the nations. Anoichi Hashem Elikecha. Anoichi stands for Ono Nafshi Kosovisi Havis. I myself wrote the Torah, and I'm giving it to you, Klal Yisrael. Or Amir Neima Ksiva Yehiva, or some people read it backwards. Yehiva Ksiva Ne'amonim Amareya. Its words are reliable. Bilam's mule, Yorat Haderech Mim Lenegdi. What is this word Yorat? It's an abbreviation. Yora Ra'as Natsa. She saw, she feared, and she veered off the way. When Klal Yisrael brings the carbon oimer, so we can eat chadash, it says in the pasuk Carmel. Carmel is an abbreviation of Karmole, a full pillow. The barley is bursting, it's moist. David HaMelech said about Shimi ben Gera, Vu kilalani klola nimretzes. What does nimretzes stand for? Noyev, referring to the story of Bathsheba. Mem, Moyavi, you come from a Moyavi. Reitseach, Tsoirer, you're a murderer, you're hated. Toyeva, you are disgusting, an abomination. Yehuda says, I don't know what to say. You found the Gavia Kesef in our sack. I don't know what to say. Nitztadok stands for Nechoinim, we're upright. Tzadikim, Tohirim, Dakim, we're clean. Kedoshim. Says the Mishnah, if a person writes 2 letters, he's chayev. What if he has an awareness that it's Shabbos or that it's Asr in between the 2 letters? Machloikis. Ringam Lil says he's chayev because that awareness doesn't separate the 2 letters. And Yediyah L'chatzi Shir. According to Chacham, he's potter because the Yediyah, Yesh Yediyah L'chatzi Shir, and it does separate. And with that, we finish the parak Haboina. The new parak Ha'ereg discusses weaving and a loom. According to Eliezer, you're chayev for 3 threads in the beginning and 1 thread later on. According to Chachamim, whether it's in the beginning, whether it's at the end or in the middle, it's 2 threads. At the end, it's only 1 thread. There's a stira contradiction in the Braisos. The Braisos says that according to Rebbe Lezer, you're chayev after 2 threads. We said in the Mishnah 3. We have to say that one is talking about thick threads, one is talking about thin threads. The Gemara is not sure which one is what. On the one hand, 3 threads, if they're thick, that's the only way they won't unravel, but it will unravel if it's only 2 threads. On the other hand, thin threads are not noticeable, and therefore you need 3, and only then you're chayev. At the edge of the garment, there's a different shear. Usually it's kisit. It's the spread between the fingers. Here it's much less. It's only 3 threads of shesi and 2 of erev because it's chashav when it comes to a belt, a tziltzil. The Gemara brings a brayso that says exactly like Rebbe Eliezer, and then a brayso that says exactly like Rabbanon, so it's 1 up, and there's no bigger rider, one over the other. Says the Mishnah, in a loom that goes up and down, the heddles go up and down. In the center, you have these loops. You put the threads through these loops, and these loops bring the threads up and down. You can pass a shuttle through them. Putting 2 threads through 2 of those loops, you are chayev. Abaye explains, and if you have to put a 3rd one on another device. Kirus is a type of a loom for curtains. Also, same idea. If you are weaving a basket or napo kvara, meaning you take reeds or like a lulav leaf, there's shesi and erev. The horizontal leaves are held by 2 vertical. The verticals are held by 2 horizontal. That's all you need to be chayev, like you see in the picture, blue and red. the Mishnah tells us that if you sew 2 stitches, you're chayiv, but we already had it in the Mishnah in Klal Gadol. It's coming to tell us the next halacha, that if you rip in order to sew, then you're chayiv, which we also had in the Mishnah in Klal Gadol. What does it mean to tear in order to sew? It means if you have some sort of bump in your beged, you want to smooth it out, you tear it and you sew it down. But why do we need this halacha? To tell us the following halacha, that if you tear a beged because a person is sad over the loss of a loved one, or he's angry, he is potter. Unless a person breaks tears mekalkel in order to build. Says the Gemara, we must be talking about a dead person that he doesn't have a chiyuv to rip kriya, because if he did, then he did something positive and he would be chayiv on Shabbos. One of these relatives, a mother-in-law, somebody that he doesn't have to rip kriya, he's just responsible over. The person is not a chacham, because if he's a chacham, all of Klal Yisrael have to rip kriya, and on a chacham you have to do chalitza, which is to expose your shoulder, and you have to eat sudas havra. He's obviously not a kosher person, because any kosher person you have to rip kriya, and obviously he wasn't at the Yetzias Neshama, at the departing of the soul. Otherwise, regardless of the relationship, you have to rip kriya, just like you rip kriya when you see a Sefer Torah burning. Every Jew, says Rashi, has Torah and mitzvahs, and you have to rip kriya. The shear for whitening wool and untangling it and dyeing it and weaving it is double a sit. But if you are oireg, it's only the size of 1 sit. It says in the Mishnah that if you rip a beged, you do kriya out of anger, you're potter. It goes according to Reb Shimon, that says melacha shein tzricha legufa, potter. In other words, you prefer not to have the situation. It's just a solution to the situation. It's not a constructive, positive melacha, and you are potter. The Brisa that says you're chayiv goes according to Rabbi Yehuda in a situation where a person had a positive effect. He wanted to teach his family a lesson. This is what happens if you get daddy angry. He tears things. But to calm your yetzer, that would be usher, because that causes a person to get used to getting angry, and eventually he'll do avodah zarah, says the Gemara. Rav Yehuda says, Rav Yehuda used to teach his family lesson by ripping threads in the bottom of his garment. Rav Acha used to break different kelim that were already broken. Rav Abba would break the lid of a pitcher. And Reb Shimon would spill fish sauce on his slave to teach her a lesson and to say, this is what happens when you get me mad. If you cry over a kosher person that was nifter, Kadosh Baruch Hu counts the tears and stores them away in his base gnazav. Rav says, if you are lazy about giving a hesped to a chacham, you are worthy to be buried alive. And Rebbe says, you won't have longevity, mida keneged mida. Even though by Yeshua's hesped, they weren't maspedim for 30 days, those people actually didn't have a long life, but they had a good life for the short years that they lived. And when it says L'man Yirbu Yimechem, bracha, since it's a bracha, that refers to long life and a good life. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.